Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're so glad for you to join us. I am Allison O'Connor. I'm with Larimer County Extension. My co-pilot today is Cassie Anderson from Adams County, and our presenter is Molly from the Tri-River area, and I will introduce Molly just in a second. So over here on the Front Range, it is scorching hot, and so hopefully you're in a cool spot where you can enjoy this webinar today. As a reminder, CSU is an equal opportunity access and non-discrimination university. For more information, please visit the website or reach out to any of us if you have any questions or need accommodations. A couple of housekeeping things before we launch into Molly's very extensive plant list. This webinar is being recorded. In a few days, we will post it to planttalk.org/webinars. Cassie will pop that into the chat where you can view previous webinars and then also register for those that are coming up. We do these webinars on the second Wednesday of the month at noon Mountain Time. And today, if you have any questions for Molly, please use the Q&A. We'll be closing down the chat, so please use the Q&A for anything that you might have. Cassie and I will do our best to answer things, and if not, we will toss those questions to Molly to answer when she is finished today. Coming up on September 10th, if you can believe it, we're already halfway through August, and September is on the way. September 10th at 12, Melissa Schreiner, also from the western slope of Colorado, will be talking about the art of insect survival. If you haven't heard from Mel, she is a really entertaining and delightful entomologist, so please consider joining us in September. And without further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Molly, who is our speaker today. Molly is the horticulture agent and natural resources specialist for the Tri-River area over on the western slope of Colorado. She oversees a very robust Master Gardener program, and today she'll be talking about plants that do well on the western slope, and some will translate to lower elevations as well here on the Front Range. So thanks, Molly, for joining us, and thanks to all of you for being here. Take it away.
All right. Thank you for that introduction and for having me here today. Hopefully everybody is seeing the title slide and can hear me okay. All right. So I moved to Colorado in 2020 from the East Coast. And when you tell people from the East Coast that you're moving to Colorado, this is what they envision for you. And so we've got some snow, we've got some greenery. And so I had to explain that no, I wasn't moving to that Colorado. I was moving to this Colorado, the even drier part of Colorado, the semi-desert part. And so I can fully appreciate that the learning curve is steep. For those of you who may be new to Colorado, and for lifelong Colorado gardeners, there's always some new challenge here, whether it's a late frost or hail. We had some pretty bad hail a couple months ago that caused some damage. So where are we? So the Tri-River area is western Colorado and is comprised of Mesa, Delta, Montrose, and Ouray counties. And we have offices in Grand Junction, Delta, and Montrose. And here in Grand Junction, we are located within the fairgrounds, and we have about 3.5 acres of demonstration gardens. And these are maintained primarily by master gardeners and some seasonal staff. And what we have, if you have never been, encourage you to visit. We have an arboretum over here. We have a crabapple arboretum, which is crabapples from A to Z. We have plant select demonstration beds here. We have some other beds around our office. There's a cactus garden that really is a gem that's maintained by the Chinle Cactus and Succulent Society. And then we have the Ute Learning Garden, which is a native plant ethnobotanical garden. And we do offer tours. So if you're in the area, I encourage you to come have a look. The gardens are open from dawn to dusk. So I'm going to be focusing on what has done well here in Grand Junction, but a lot of this will apply elsewhere in the Western Slope and elsewhere in Colorado. Typically, when we're talking about the Western Slope and hardiness, where people are living, we're generally between 5A and 7A. And so here in Grand Junction, we are in 7A with over 180-degree frost-free periods. So we can typically get away with a lot and grow a lot of things that may struggle elsewhere in the state. But that's not to say that we're not without our own challenges. Some of these are just Colorado challenges, and some may be a little bit unique for us here. So of course we have the intense sun, we have the low humidity, we have low precipitation in some years, really low. We'll talk about that. We have high temperatures. I know that everybody is probably hot today in Colorado. Um, we have salty soils in a lot of places. A lot of our parent material is salty, and that weathers. And with our irrigation practices, we can end up keeping those salts kind of in the soil profile where plants are unfortunately getting them. And like a lot of places, our native soils are pretty low in organic matter, 1 or 2%. Of course, we have high pH here, between 7.5. Usually when we get soil tests, we're seeing 7.8, 7.9. So it can be pretty high and challenging in and of itself. In terms of the temperatures, this summer's been hot. I feel like every summer is hot. And what we're seeing here is our average high temperature, and then the observed temperature. So you can see that for this period, 4-week period in June and July, we had a lot of days above 90 and a lot of days above 95 and even 100. So combine that with low humidity, and we have plants that are losing water at a pretty high rate. In terms of our average precipitation, we're looking at, in a good year, 9 inches. And you can see we typically get a lot of that in those summer monsoons, and those just have not come this year. And I think everybody is aware of just how dry it is in Western Colorado with all the fires that are starting and burning. But this just really sends it home for me, where you can see the lighter color is lower precipitation. And our total for the year is 2.38 inches about. So we've had less than 0.2 inches since the start of July. So it is really dry, really challenging for a lot of plants. And of course, those dry periods are not new, but they are, happening pretty frequently. And so we are used to being in some drought condition for some portion of most years. And this is likely to continue. And of course, you go out, you take a hike, and there are plants. There are things flowering. There are plants growing in the saltiest sites. And, they are enduring even on very low rainfall. So that brings me to what to plant. And we can think about plants in these two buckets, native plants or non-native plants. And when you're talking about native plants, there's always a question about the degree of nativeness that you're looking at. We of course have the Rocky Mountains that divide our state. Some plants occur on one side, but not the other, native to Colorado, but maybe not native to the Western Slope or vice versa. Um, these plants, and of course, that's up to you, the degree of nativeness you want in your own garden. And of course, mixing it up is lovely also. So these plants are adapted to our conditions. They are used to high pH, salty soils, not going with rainfall for long periods of time. So they're a great choice because they're already used to what we have. We're not trying to change what we have to match a plant. These also, because they evolved with local fauna, they provide food and habitat for wildlife and insects, and of course, can bring in birds that a lot of people like to see in their gardens. And then, less tangibly, they contribute to a sense of place. You can look at the garden and say, this is a garden in Western Colorado, or this is a garden in Grand Junction. And it's not some big box store landscape that could be in Boston, Denver, or, San Diego. Maybe San Diego would be different. Um, but it really says where you are. And of course, non-native plants, there are other parts of the world that have similar conditions. And we can find plants that are adapted to those conditions, but bring other qualities to our gardens. And these also can support wildlife by providing food and habitat. So that's how I'll organize talking about plants today. So native and non-native plants. There are a lot of resources out there to help you choose plants. And I'll talk about a few of these, and of course, your local CSU Extension office. A lot of you are probably familiar with Plant Select. This is a program that's a partnership between CSU, Denver Botanic Gardens, and industry to test out very tough, but also pretty plants for our region. And there are demonstration gardens around the state. We have one here in Grand Junction. And every year, a few selections are released as Plant Select plants, and they are marketed as such, and you can expect that they will be tough. And their website is a great place to get a lot of information. They have a plant finder where you can set filters. They have garden designs. This is a native garden, and you can see on the right that you have choices between plants, so you can plug and play however you like in your own garden, and you don't have to be a garden designer. And if you'd rather not have to go buy the plants at a nursery, you can use Garden in a Box from Resource Central, which is a water conservation nonprofit. And not only do these gardens come with a plan, but they come with the plants. So you can simply match it up and quickly plant a water-wise garden in your landscape. And I think this may be the first or second year that this is offered on the Western Slope, and it is available in Grand Junction this year. So that's exciting. So lots of options. Many local organizations and entities also have plant lists that you can turn to see what would do well or be expected to do well in your area. What are the appropriate trees? We see the Grand Valley All-Star Tree List, which was developed by the City Forestry Board, and the Tree Board in Cedar Ridge have their own list of trees that will do well at slightly higher elevation. And the Colorado Native Plant Society also has brochures with plants for the Western Slope and other areas. I'd also encourage you to go visit local botanical gardens, see what they're growing, and pay attention to gardens in your neighborhood, um, so that you can get ideas and see what's doing well. So be curious. All right, so now the plants, and there are a lot of them. So bear with me here. All right, so we're going to start with the plants that are native to Colorado, and these may be native to east or west. So Fendler Sundrops, this is a really nice member of the evening primrose family. This blooms spring through summer. Ours is kind of winding down at this point, but you can see this gorgeous flush of pretty large yellow flowers. Um, these are native to southeastern Colorado, and they do well in a variety of soils. The soil in that bed is pretty clayey, and just gets western sun like nobody's business. So it gets hot, and these just do really well for us. Banana yucca. This is definitely a favorite of mine. Um, these are big, 4 to 6 feet wide, um, and fairly tall. And in the spring, you get these gorgeous flowers, sends up the stalk, that are edible. I have not eaten them because then you're losing all those flowers. Um, but just a really nice, basically no maintenance plant. Um, and I would also throw in some other yuccas here, like Harriman's yucca that does really well. And you essentially don't have to do anything to it, except maybe weed out elm seedlings, which then you have to do very carefully because it's pretty sharp. So we have a few of these in our U-Learning garden and in our other demonstration gardens. And while generally maintenance free, we are seeing this insect, the banana yucca leaf miner, which was first maybe found in Colorado in the late 80s around Dove Creek. And about 4 years ago, we started getting calls from local landscapers about uh, insect damage that they were seeing in banana yucca. And there is nothing in the literature. There are yucca moths that are in the roots and in other parts of the plant, but not in the leaves. So this is something that seems to be established now in our area. You can, of course, prune this out, like you would prune out if a leaf died or dried up, and accept that you're supporting a native insect. So this is a very tiny insect, but also very pretty. So if you plant it, they may come. All right, so Rocky Mountain penstemon. This is I'm going to say like every plant's a favorite of mine, and they are because they're in this presentation. But this one really, it establishes really easily. It does like well-drained soil. And the only time I've killed this was by watering it too much. And it does seed, so that in a nice way, I think. So we can end up with a few more plants. This is a spring flowerer, so it's all done, by July. But this area in this bed is just, buzzing with pollinators when this is in flower. And penstemons in general, I mean, of course, they're super fun, but they do really well in our gardens. And I have a mix of some of the non-native ones in here, but there are a lot of great ones to choose from. And a lot of them are pretty tolerant, especially if you don't water them too much. A real workhorse of our garden, and probably many of yours, is wine cups. And this is one that blooms from, spring to frost. and just these gorgeous magenta flowers that are pretty big and flat. So they invite all kinds of insects like beetles who need sort of that larger flat flower. This is low growing, and it wants to spread. So you can, make sure you give it the space to do that. And it will seed readily. And so you can, let those go, or you can dig them up. Even though it has a big sort of taproot, they do transplant pretty well when they're small. We just transplanted some, I think, last week, and they're still looking pretty good. So Canna Creek buckwheat. And I do have this little Plant Select logo for ones that are Plant Select. This is a Western Slope plant. The original one was collected just off Grand Mesa in the Canna Creek area. And this is not picky about soils, can take full or part sun. Ours is just gets blasted by that Western sun, and it does just fine. And so not only do you get these electric yellow flowers that flies really like, this is not a flower that smells super good, to me at least. But in the fall, you get this fall color. The leaves turn reddish and will stay on, so you get that evergreen effect. So something nice to look at all year long. Another one that I would love to see in more gardens is globe mallow, or our globe mallow. So we have a couple of different species that you can find um, uh, in for seeds or in gardens. And these grow from seed really easily, so easy to establish in the garden. And again, sand or clay. So a lot of these that I'm sharing do well in a variety of soils. In more irrigated situations, this may seed more than is desired, but can be, pretty easily controlled. And this is one that's going to tolerate those hot and dry conditions. You'll see this out hiking in Colorado National Monument or in other areas, growing along trails without any intervention from anybody or any supplemental water. So this plant really is one of my favorites, especially to encounter hiking or biking. And this is Colorado Desert Blue Star, Jones's Blue Star. This is a regional endemic to the Four Corners states. And in Colorado in the wild, it's a sensitive species and is known from a few sites. And lucky for us in Mesa County, there are some sites where it's pretty abundant in those places. So this is one of those plants that says, yes, I'm in Western Colorado. And you've got these white, purplish flowers in the spring that smell so good. Often out in the wild, there are many of these plants, and the air is just redolent with that smell. These don't need any water once they're established. And we have one going here at our garden. So I maybe snuck this in just because I like it so much. I was told they're really hard to kill. I managed to kill two. I'm still not sure why. But we're going to try some seed this fall and see how that goes. Really want to have these flowers represented in our garden here. So another workhorse that's going to bloom all summer long is Engelmann's daisy. This is native to southeastern Colorado, but this is a really easy plant to get started with in a water-wise garden, probably anywhere in Colorado. Easily grows from seed in any kind of soil. You can deadhead it if you don't want those seeds. We end up digging up some of the seedlings, and probably 90% of them survive. This does have a big taproot, even on a little tiny seedling. So a really great one that, minimal effort to grow. Winter fat. This is one that you're probably going to be planning for texture. It does not have showy flowers, but this is a low growing shrub, subshrub, that's evergreen. And in the winter, it's got these white, fluffy seed heads that are really soft and really ornamental. And this one is good for salty sites. Um, and native to Colorado. This used to be pretty abundant in the landscape, but it is sensitive to disturbance and grazing. But as you could guess from the name, winter fat, it is one that provided good forage for livestock and wildlife. So this is a really fun one. We have this in a water-wise bed and in our native plant Ute Learning Garden. And this is one that doesn't need water once it's established. One that you're probably all familiar with, Canyon Plume, also known as Apache Plume. Um, this is just a great shrub, lots of year-round interest. Um, you get these white flowers pretty much all summer. Ours is sort of, we don't have as many flowers at this point as we did earlier, but they're still going. And then you get these Dr. Susie seed heads that are pink and they'll dry to kind of tan. And this just thrives without a lot of water, provides a lot of beauty. And you often see a lot of insects hanging around, like this little ant we have here. This is one that will take up space, but you can also manage its size by pruning. And it can take a hard pruning. So we've pruned a lot of ours here. We have a lot of this plant here. We've pruned it back pretty hard, and it's just gorgeous when it starts over in the spring. Fremont Mahonia. This is another one that really tells you you're in Western Colorado. Its range is a little bit west, but it ekes into very Western Colorado. And this one is an evergreen. You've got this gorgeous blue-green foliage. And in the spring, just this mass of yellow, sweet, honey smelling flowers. It really is stunning. You can smell this tree, I don't know, probably 50, 60 feet away in our parking lot. It just fills the air. And when you get closer to it, all you hear is buzzing. It is just full of pollinators, a lot of bees. So really fun one. Typically this is a shrub, ours, and you can't really tell in the photo, but it's been pruned to a single stem, which is a really nice effect. And you get these red berries later on that are also very attractive, um, and attractive to animals. So definitely a favorite. Rabbit brush, everybody's probably familiar with rabbit brush, but this one is important because it's providing late season resources for pollinators because this is flowering. I think I took this picture in November, the one on the, sorry, mid-October. I have another one of it in November. So this one is flowering pretty late in the season and providing food for insects. This is one that will reseed, especially in irrigated situations. Plant Select, and there is a Plant Select variety called Baby Blue Rabbit Brush. They recommend removing the seed heads in the fall to improve the flowering the following year. So straight species or Plant Select, it's hard to go wrong. And just, I love the pillowy texture that rabbit brush lends to the landscape. And this is another one that can take pretty hard pruning. So we prune these back pretty hard every other year. So um, grows on any kind of soil. So, all right, a few more shrubs. Lead plant. These are really great. These do really well in our gardens here. And we've got the regular lead plant and then dwarf lead plant, which is a plant select. These are native to eastern Colorado, not picky about soil. These flower in late spring, and it's a nice native alternative to butterfly bush. You get those same kind of purple flowers and insects coming to them. These love hot and dry conditions. And I will tell you a little story about this plant, which is just a lead plant. This is in the water, one of our water-wise beds. And I don't know if it got weed whacked or if an animal came and browsed it, but I think 3 times, two, maybe 3 times, this plant got mowed down in the late season. And every year it has just come back. So now it has rocks all around it so that people will stay away. But it has just endured. Hopefully next year will be its time to grow, as long as it doesn't get trimmed by whatever was trimming it. So Stansbury cliff rose, this Persia stansburyiana, this is native to the western slope. It has a relative, the antelope bitterbrush, which is also common. And this is another one in the rose family, like Canyon Plume, that flowers spring, summer, and into fall. And you get this nice white flower, semi-evergreen to evergreen foliage. And then I don't have a great photo, but it's got these ornamental wispy seed heads. Not quite as outrageous as Canyon Plume, but really nice, reminiscent of mountain mahogany, say. And this is just a really nice, well-behaved shrub. I don't know how easy this is to find in the nursery, but you can find seeds for it. And maybe if you seek it out, you will be able to find it. The other one, the antelope bitterbrush, is more widely available. So box elder, and specifically sensation box elder. Box elders are native to Colorado. Sensation is a selection from Idaho that was growing in an old homestead. So this is a really nice larger tree, slightly higher water needs than some of the other plants we've been looking at. But really nice to get a large tree that is also not a cottonwood, so it can bring us some diversity and does really well. It's a male clone, so you don't get seeds, so you don't get box elder buds, which some people want to avoid. Really nice fall color. You can see here, this is at a supermarket. And this is the one in our garden. I don't know if it was going to turn red or if that's just what it did that year, but still a nice display. But that is a larger tree. And then back to a littler tree, Utah serviceberry. Serviceberries in general are great for supporting insects and wildlife. You get these beautiful strappy flowers, which give way to nice fruit that usually birds eat. If you're lucky enough to get to it before the birds, you can make a nice jam. This is a small tree, or shrub. Usually it's shrubby and has low to xeric water needs. This is one that you'll see just out in the wild, often in washes where it can get some water seasonally, but a really lovely option for gardens. Okay, so now we've got not native to Colorado plants. And we're going to start with one of my favorites, yellowhorn. And you're probably familiar with this tree. It is native to China. And the reason you plant this usually is for that gorgeous uh, flower show in the spring. So this flowers before the leaves come on, and the flowers start out with yellow centers. And then after pollination, they turn reddish. So you get this really colorful effect. This tree, not picky about soil, though it does like well-drained soil. Uh, so flowers give way to this large fruit, maybe the size of an apple, and that dries and then falls off the tree. Contains a number of seeds, and the seeds are pretty high in oil. They are edible, and I'm told they taste like macadamia nuts. And some places are trying to grow these as a crop for the oil or for the seeds, because it can get by on as little as 6 inches of water a year. It'll do better with more, but it's pretty good. In our gardens, you can see this top um, image. This was planted by a squirrel. So these seeds have popped up all over our gardens. And it was kind of a mystery initially what these plants were, but turns out they are animal planted yellowhorn. So that is fun. And there is a Plant Select cultivar. I don't know if ours is that, but you can seek it out. It is maybe a little harder to find in the trade. Redbud, this is another one that flowers before the leaves come out. And this is the Oklahoma redbud. This is a little bit more drought tolerant than the straight species. And you get these beautiful magenta flowers that attach directly to the trunk and branches. Really nice effect in the spring. And ours is right near our yellowhorn, so you can see both flowering at the same time. It's pretty sweet. This is low to low to moderate water needs. And it does really well for us. Full sun or part shade. So another great one. And this one we do find seedlings. So sometimes we pot those up and sometimes not. But it is one that'll seed into the garden. Hot Wings Maple, this is another smallish tree, native to southeastern Europe, tolerant of a variety of soils. And the reason you plant this, it's a maple. People always want a maple here, and we know that red maples, while they may do well elsewhere in the country, do not thrive here. But with this maple, it can tolerate our pH, but you get these lovely red samaras in midsummer that just, it looks like the tree is flowering. And that's just all that fruit. This year, I think most of ours got knocked off by that hailstorm I mentioned, so our display was not very good. But in good years, it is just stunning. And most years are good years. So this is one you can plant higher up as well. I question whether to include this tree, but I like it so much, despite some of the problems that it has here. This is a hybrid between desert willow and southern catalpa, and I would say that desert willow is also a great choice. if you just want to go with a straight plant. This flowers all summer, pretty much. It's still flowering now. It was flowering in June with these really big catalpa-esque flowers. It's fast growing. People often want a fast growing tree. It's a little bit marginal, so we do have some dieback each year, but that's okay. This was first hybridized in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, hence Tashkentensis, if you're curious. So this is a zone 6 to 9 plant, so not for cooler sites. And so sort of marginal hardiness is a knock, but also it gets this bacterial leaf scorch. And this is caused by the pathogen Xylella fastidiosa, which is transmitted by a variety of insects and plugs up the xylem, so the tree can't move fluids around. And eventually it may be fatal. Definitely will stress the tree. And so you can see that damage here. And because these are vegetatively propagated, the plant may have even come with this disease already. And somebody brought a sample into our office a few weeks ago, and my colleague Jeff found this resource about this disease, which we were not aware of. And sure enough, I went out to our tree and it has it as well. So really pretty tree, but know that that is a potential strong limiting factor. Bur oak, this is a great larger tree, native to the US, just a little east of Colorado, but very tolerant of drought or high pH, compaction. Like a lot of oaks, this is a slow grower. And it does have this really fun, fringy acorn cap and kind of corky texture on the bark. And this is a tree that does really well in our gardens. And you see this planted in the city also. So it's relatively pest-free, very tolerant of our soils here. So ice plants, you're probably familiar with these. We have had great luck with these in our gardens, and particularly these two, the Mesa Verde ice plant, and then the Granita raspberry ice. So we have a few of these around. Really beautiful ground cover. There are also some in the cactus garden. Essentially no maintenance for this plant. They do prefer well-drained soil, sandy, loamy. It definitely will struggle on clay. And we have a lot of clay, so I'm surprised these are doing so well, but the drainage may be better. I said no maintenance, but really the only maintenance we do is picking out the bindweed, which I tried to get it out before I took the photo. But that really is all we do for this plant. And they will spread. A master gardener this morning was telling me that he had a patch that was, I think he said 10 feet, so can take up some space. So Missouri evening primrose. This is another one that is native so close to Colorado. There is a plant select variety called Silver Blade. This may be that, I'm not sure. This plant appears in a variety of our gardens. I don't know if it was planted or if it has been spread by animals, but this is another season-long bloomer that just does not disappoint. Spring to frost, xeric, we water ours a bit, but it doesn't really need much water at all. These are going to prefer well-drained soil. And here where I've taken this photo, it's abuts our parking lot. And so that's a curb. And they just cascade over just a little bit. And I just love that effect at the edge of the garden where it can cascade a little. Really great plant. And we don't do anything to maintain it. And it just always looks great. Russian sage. So this is a plant that everybody's probably familiar with. Some may argue it's overused, but I would say it's used for a reason because it is incredibly tough. And it's gorgeous. Who can argue with those wispy sprays of flowers? So this plays really well with other wispy flowers that have similar form, like Agastache. Just a really lovely shade of purple. This is one that will take up space, 3 to 5 feet tall and wide. And of course, if you have this in your garden, you're probably familiar with it spreading with suckers. It also can seed, but it's pretty easy to dig those up and remove them. And of course, with more water, you're going to get more of that seeding. This is a very low water plant. The only thing that, and again, another one that is just buzzing with pollinators. This is a bee magnet. Deer don't like it. It's got a very pungent smell. So like when you're weeding, you can smell that aroma, aromatic, and it'll thrive almost anywhere. Parking lots, medians, and in those very low or no, almost no irrigation, it'll do pretty well and won't spread as much. So Russian sage, there are, of course, alternatives if you'd like something native, but a plant for those really tough, really hard sites or just anywhere in the garden, right? This is in one of the front beds at our office here. And the only thing we do is kind of cut it back in the spring, dig it up because it kind of starts to overtake some of the irrigation infrastructure. So plants we've struggled with at least once. Most of these are plants that have died more than once. And some, I just have no idea why. And some I have a sense. So Wild Thing Sage and Furman's Red Sage have just broken my heart multiple times here. They'll do really well in the growing season. And then, and we'll mound them up a little bit with mulch, water over the winter, and then they just don't come back. And I need to look into this more because who can argue with that color? Both of those are just gorgeous reds that add that pop in the garden. Tanager gazania, we had this for a couple years. This bloomed every month of the year. And then one year it just died. It did not come back in the spring. And that's one that maybe is a tender perennial and maybe just couldn't quite swing it. Hyssopus, Agastache, sometimes those don't come back in the spring. So this winter we lost a lot. I don't know if it's because it was so dry and we didn't water enough. But we have some seedlings now that are coming up. So hopefully next year we'll be able to have some more of those because those really bring in the hummingbirds. Colorado Desert Blue Star, that really fragrant regional endemic. Still going to keep trying, try from seed this fall, see what happens in the spring. Manzanitas, um, those we've struggled with. We're still trying, but those we've had a hard time getting to establish. And partridge feather. I see this on the Front Range in gardens, and I don't know if we're just too hot or what. Um, One that I thought had died, I looked today and I think maybe there's still some life, but ones that we have struggled with a little bit. Some plants I killed because I didn't know they needed shade. This bed is in front of our office. It gets really intense western sun. Um, and so when we first planted it, we put all the plants in, and then a few weeks later, some of them really started struggling. It had gotten hot. And my colleague put out a thermometer on the soil surface, and it read 120 degrees. So those poor little plants were just getting fried in their poor little roots. So now we have these little mesh shade things. It's just wire and then mesh stapled around that we'll use until the plants get established. And that has really cut down on that mortality from through in the establishment time. This slide could also be called plants that we planted and I immediately forgot about, but still survived. So the real winner here is silver totem buffalo berry. And buffalo berry does really well in our Ute learning garden. But this one here, this bed is pretty far from our office. It's the last bed that we maintain. And so it doesn't get as much attention. So I thought that'd be a great place for this plant. I forgot about it. And it was getting some regular water to get it going. And it just established in no time. We have to cut away some of that rabbit brush, give it some space, but it's doing really well. And these others have done really well as well without intervention from master gardeners or me. Um, so there are some that will establish easily. So this is sort of the list of all the other plants that, you know, I talked about 26 plants. It could have been more. um, so these are some others that just work really well here. I didn't talk about grasses. Loving on Blonde Ambition, blue grama grass right now. That does really well. Bulbs and tubers, they do well. And of course, bring that early season activity to beds where our perennials haven't started yet, and then they disappear so that we can extend that period of interest for those beds. Lots of shrubs, golden currant, that's one that thrives without really much love from us. And then a number of trees. And we have an Arizona cypress that is just stunning in our north garden. So a lot of other options for plants that will do well here. And we don't kill all the sages. Mojave sage and desert purple sage have done really well in our Waterwise garden. So where to find plants? It can, of course, be tricky if you have a plant in mind and you can't find it at your local nursery, but we always recommend supporting local nurseries and garden centers, seeking out local plant sales. Sometimes you may have to get seed to get some things started, and we're lucky to have some great seed companies here in Colorado. We also have the ability to collect seed locally. Of course, you always want to do that ethically, check with local regulations, get a permit if you need one, or propagate plants. So maybe your friend has some of these plants that you're interested in, and you can take a cutting on that. So lots of options for finding even some of those hard to find plants. And I think my biggest takeaway is just to try plants. I certainly had never killed as many plants until I moved here. And I think I'm planting a lot more, but also, trying to figure out what will do well um, in our gardens here and in our condition. And I'll just leave you with these Rocky Mountain penstemon and desert purple sage. Thank you. I don't know if we have time for any questions.
I think we do have a couple minutes, and the biggest one, Molly, is that you had some seed companies and things on the previous slide. Are there any nurseries, native plant nurseries on the Western Slope that sell plugs or smaller sized native plants that you could recommend, not putting you on the spot?
Um, in the Grand Junction area, there are some nurseries that do have a lot of native and water wise, and these are like most of our local garden centers. Chelsea here, Valley Grown, Bookcliff. It really, sometimes you have to call to ask. And some of those are going to be in gallon pots. So maybe the person was looking for something smaller. But I think it's just sort of calling and visiting some of these nurseries to look for what they have.
And I did provide in the Q&A a list from the Colorado Native Plant Society of a list of nurseries that was statewide.
Oh,
Yes, but also, yeah, like Molly said, make sure you're contacting your local nurseries or mail order. There's a lot that can be shipped through the mail, even plugs. You just pay the cost for it. With that, we're just getting thanks and kudos, Molly. So I will not keep anyone any longer. Thanks for joining us today. Everyone stay cool and have a fantastic rest of the summer. Thanks again, Molly.
thank you.